How did you feel? What was your immediate reaction when you heard that Winnie had passed away?
Well, I think that when people that we know or have spent time with join the ancestors, I call it a multimedia experience. You begin to have flashbacks of those conversations that you had and the things that you experienced. And so I began to really reminisce and to think about the times, the comprehensive blocks of time that I was able to spend with Winnie and to be in her presence. And it's interesting, Shireen Hassim, who was a political scientist at the University of Witwatersrand, basically made a comment that no other woman in life or after occupies the space that Winnie Mandela does in the history and politics of South Africa. And I would agree with that I think that, and possibly even in the African diaspora and in the world relative to the black world. I was thinking about that, maybe Queen Nzinga of Angola, maybe Harriet Tubman, but there aren't very many women who have carried the historical heft, weight, have had the stature, have also experienced a level of challenge, and as the prior points of view that were expressed, obviously a very complex woman. But as someone said about her recently, which a quote that I really like, that she never befriended the enemy. She was always on the side of the people and was always an advocate for the underdog. And she was a human being. She was a flawed person, but I think that part of what isn't taken in consideration as apartheid is a state structure and state system that basically created a context for violence in South Africa. There are at least 30 years of research that's been done about terror and violence in South Africa and how apartheid actually established a triggering mechanism, if you will, for how people responded. Behaved, not just the minority relative to the black population, but also internal to the black population as well. And so somehow the characterization that, Winnie was a violent person or promoted violence, I think that that does not take into account the context of the history of South Africa.
I only had the opportunity to have a cup of coffee with her in Soweto at her cousin's, actually sister's restaurant, opposite the old Mandela House, which is now a museum.
Before going to South Africa for the first time, I went to Lusaka, Zambia, and I spent time with the ANC, Oliver Tambo, good friend of mine, Willie Ssali, South African poet, etc.
When was that?
So we're talking about 30 years ago.
Okay.
This is 1988.
Correct.
Much of the leadership of the ANC had not been in the country since the late 50s. The ANC was banned in 1960.
Correct.
And the organization was not legal until 1990. So there's a 30-year span where basically most of the people in the country, especially the leaders of the ANC, are either in exile or either in jail. And so Winnie is there, really kind of as a tall tree. And so because these older guys hadn't been there in a long time, they were saying, well, when you first go in, you're going to have to go underground. We're going to have to create a whole identity for you as an ethnomusicologist. They had someone flying in with me who was carrying my equipment. You can't let people know who you are. They said you can't take anything with you to identify yourself or your mission. And so I get there and I contact someone with the Free Mandela Committee. They immediately take me to Winnie's house. And and they're saying, we don't have time for all that subterfuge. We need to get right to it. I was there to do a documentary on the life of Nelson Mandela. So Winnie is walking out of her house, and I'm walking up with two of her people that she knew, and kids from the neighborhood are coming up at the same time. The three of us meet.